What if the worst season of your life is actually preparing you for the best one? Because growth doesn't always feel like expansion. Sometimes it feels like loss. Welcome to another episode of Live in the Rhythm, where we talk about mindset, communication, and purposeful living, all to help you transform your life from the inside out. So you find the rhythm of life that works for you. One of the things that nobody tells you about transformation is that there's a gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And I'll tell you, that is where it's called the messy middle because it's disguised. Sometimes it comes disguised as loss of a role that's run its course, loss of relationships that just no longer fit, or even loss of a routine that once supported you that now just feels really heavy. This is transition. This is the messy middle. It can feel disorienting, uncomfortable, and sometimes even lonely because that's where we're wrestling. We're wrestling with who we're becoming. And it's interesting because I had this conversation with a group of colleagues of mine that we talked about transformation, transition. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Oftentimes, it feels really uncomfortable, uneasy, disorienting. We feel untethered to what was comfortable for us. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but I cling to it. I cling to it with everything I have because it's comfortable. It's what I knew. And sometimes to the point of bloody knuckles. Okay, maybe that's just me, bloody knuckles. But I find that I used to have this controlling spirit where I wanted to control other things, other people. And white knuckling? No, bloody knuckling. And that's how I came out in some cases. And what I recognized is that the tighter I cling on to something, the more I feel grief. And that's one of the things that we need to recognize is that when there's a loss, like I said, the transformation comes disguised in loss, not always growth. Yay, this is amazing. But it comes disguised in loss. And loss, we need to give it and let it run its course. First off, we need to recognize that I am losing who I used to be. And we need to grieve that. We need to mourn that. I'm going to give you an example. When I left my corporate role many years ago, it was all due to the fact that my company was getting bought out. So month after month, there was discussion about who's going to take over. And as that discussion was going on in my professional life, I felt something moving in my spirit going, do I want to continue on? I just felt this uncomfortableness bringing, just prompting me and prompting me and prompting me. And it got to a point where I thought, maybe this just doesn't quite fit me anymore. Maybe I'm ready for something new. So when I did finally take the package, when my company got bought out, initially I had so much excitement for something new. And so I started my own business, got 3 months into it, got all excited, brought all that energy from my corporate success into my new business. I did what I knew I could do and, put together my business, got the structure together, all the back end information, all the back end mechanics of it, the foundation of my business. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I was wearing lead boots and I couldn't put a finger. I was like, what is going on? But you see, what was happening is everything that worked for me in my corporate career no longer felt like it was right. And I couldn't put a finger on it. And here's the danger that nobody else tells you this, that when we become disoriented, when we feel a little bit off kilter, when we feel uncomfortable, the first thing that we do sometimes is we go internal and go, okay, what's wrong with me? What am I not doing right? Maybe I'm not good enough. Listen, I went there. I felt like I was wearing lead boots after a while. It's like nothing I was doing was working. And it had me questioning my own worth and my own value, which is a very dangerous place to be. But yet it's normal for us to question, like, wait a second, what's going on? But it wasn't until I started getting around new people, a new community of entrepreneurs versus my corporate community that served me in the past. So now I needed to really transition into a new community that supported me. So those friendships and those relationships that I had and supported me in my corporate career were no longer a fit for where I was headed, but I didn't know that. So again, I was feeling disoriented, super uncomfortable, and I kept clinging to what I knew. And that's why when I was wearing lead boots, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just feels heavy. So when I did start coming alongside a community of entrepreneurs that supported where I was headed, I could see the possibilities, yet I wasn't there yet. I still had that in between messy middle wrestling with what was going on. And it wasn't until some of those folks came alongside of me and helped me to recognize that I was trying to hold on to what worked, but that it's a loss. It's a loss that now needs to be grieved. And the more I started moving towards this group that helped me feel like, wow, this feels awesome. So I had to unravel a persona that worked for me in corporate America, but yet it didn't quite fit anymore. So I was like, whoa, that person doesn't fit anymore, but I'm not who I want to be. I can feel the rumblings, my my soul expanding as I was with this new group. It felt so awkward, so odd. I also felt like I didn't belong where I was and didn't belong where I'm going yet. It's this messy middle. It's this example of a caterpillar who was a beautiful little caterpillar who turns into their time of transformation is in a chrysalis that who they were completely unraveled, which is exactly what happened to me. That person who I was, I needed to unravel. And then when you think of the analogy of in a chrysalis that you're unraveling and the caterpillar literally disintegrates, turns into this gooey mess, which is again our messy middle, only to then have a new creation, a new foundation of who they're becoming, something and someone beautiful on the other side. But we have to give that transformation its due course. So when I started looking at being in the goo, I started accepting the fact that the goo can be fun. It can be fun. Let's face it, when we're little, we love to play in the goo, the Play-Doh, the silly, gooey stuff, right? The mud, the mess, the yuck. As we're kids, we love that. Why is it that when we're grown up, we don't like that messy stuff? But that's where the beauty lies. That is where we can start recreating a solid foundation of who we want to become. So the beauty of that was when I recognized the messy middle and grieved whatever relationships, whatever persona, whatever routines worked for me, and allow myself to release it and not hold on to it as losing something. I now get to release it and say, that doesn't serve me anymore. And then get really curious in what does serve you. What are some of those routines that can support the new way of being, who you're becoming? Come alongside those folks that are where you want to be. It's great to have people who are 2 to 3, 5 steps ahead of you to see what's possible. So when we can stop looking at it as a loss, because the loss has this energy of anxiousness, and allow it to release, that release in our mindset when we're saying, okay, I'm now going to release those things that no longer serve me. Now that's empowering. It allows us, and it allowed me to then look forward in future focused with excitement of anticipation instead of a death grip. So it's holding on and surrendering and holding on loosely to what's possible. And if there's anything that I can share that is supporting, is we need to recognize where we're at. When you have those rumblings and that rumble in your spirit, pay attention to that. Get curious. Where's that coming from? Because transitioning and transformation is not a bad thing, it's a great thing. But we can't start healing until we experience our heartbreak of what was. Allow yourself that grief and mourning. And quite frankly, there is no timeline on that. There is no step one, step two, step three. I don't care what people tell you. Grief, yeah, it may have 5, 6, 7 steps, whatever that is, but sometimes it becomes cyclical. And we need to be able to give ourselves that time necessary. And sometimes we have to come back at it and keep coming back at first step or the second step. This is why I talk about live in the rhythm. It is 2 steps forward, maybe 3 steps back. And when we look at it as not what it's happening to me, because sometimes change and transformation or transition is decided for us. And so we can feel like a victim and feel like, oh, shoot, this is happening to me. Why me? Then we have this anxious energy. Instead, looking at it with more curiosity to say, okay, maybe this is preparation. See, it starts in our mindset. When we make that shift, when I made that shift of these things aren't happening to me, they're happening for me. I know it's a metaphor. I know people say that all the time. And if I had $1 for every time somebody said that, I'd be like breaking the bank. But on the other hand, lived experience, and it is a choice. But again, it's when the timing is right, when you can have people walk alongside you and also share with you different perspectives. And but you also have to be open to those different perspectives. So when we decide to let go of the loss, recognize it, call it, name it what it is. It's a loss. I need to grieve who I was so I can now be empowered to release it and step into what's possible. There's so much beauty in that. I've also had a recent experience, and this is a life experience, a life transformation that hit me really hard probably about 4 months ago. And what that was is that my youngest son graduated high school. That was another transition in life. It's not something I chose. Yes, it's something that was it had come along, but I didn't recognize that I was grieving. I had to grieve. I felt super wonky for like a month and I didn't know what was going on. I felt a little disoriented. I was super excited for Gunnar, who is graduating high school, going into college and what's possible for him. I was all excited about that. And then when the excitement settled down, what I didn't realize was there was some loss and grief, the loss and grief of, "Oh my gosh, he doesn't need me as mom 24/7 anymore." This is the time we give our kids roots, and then now these are the time where we give them wings, and when they're flying off like that butterfly getting wings, it was a loss for me. I felt this big hole in my heart, and it took a little bit of transition myself until I started in my community talking about with the folks that I do life with, talking about what was going on and verbally processing all of this. I came to the revelation of like, whoa, that hit me way harder than I ever expected. So I had to grieve that and learn to grieve that. And now look with excitement of what kind of relationship that I have with him. It's an adult relationship now where I come alongside him and we're experiencing different things in life. Yes, granted, once a mother, always a mother, but no longer necessarily those bumpers in the bowling alley like I used to tell him. It's time that he spreads his own wings. And then now it left me with, okay, now what's next for me? Which is interesting because I've been on this journey for the last 3, 4 months going, what used to fit doesn't necessarily maybe some things in my life have run its course, And I'm still in that wonky season again, a little disoriented, a little uncomfortable, but recognizing it as the goo. So, how do I play in the goo again before really launching out to what's next? Holding on, if that is anything that I have learned, it is holding on loosely and surrendering fully to what's possible. And that's one thing that I would really challenge for you as well. And my question for you is, what is one thing you're grieving right now to make room for? You just heard what I was grieving. What's one thing that you're grieving that you are making room for, if you look at it that way? The second question, which is way more empowering, what are you going to release to make space for who you're becoming?